Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Liam Parker stood in the sleek, modern conference room, overlooking the bustling city below through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The sounds of the office, the murmur of colleagues, and the clinking of coffee cups seemed to blend into the background as he focused on the task at hand. But, despite the endless stream of emails and calls, something felt off. Liam couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something essential. At 38 years old, he had built his fortune from the ground up, amassing an empire in the tech industry. He was a man who could have anything. Yet when he looked in the mirror, he saw emptiness. The truth was, no amount of wealth could fill the void in his heart. He had made a promise to someone long ago, a promise that still haunted him, a promise he couldn't keep. That promise was the reason he had built this state-of-the-art hospital, something that could honor the memory of the one person who had believed in him when no one else did. But the guilt lingered. She had passed away, and the world had never known her sacrifice. He had never been able to tell her how much she had meant to him. As he walked out of the conference room, the soft hum of the office felt like an intrusion. His mind wandered back to the days before his success, when he had nothing but a dream and a promise. The woman he owed everything to had once told him that helping others was the true measure of success. But how could he help when he couldn't even fulfill his own promises? That was when he met her. Emma Brooks sat at a small table at the local cafe, sketching furiously in her worn notebook. Her fingers were stained with ink, and her eyes were tired, but the dreams she had for her art studio were all that kept her going. As she sipped her coffee, she noticed a man at the counter ordering his drink. He was dressed in a sharp suit, his hair neatly styled, but there was something about him that seemed distant, disconnected. When their eyes met for a brief moment, she quickly looked away, embarrassed. She had learned the hard way not to hope for more than what life gave her. She couldn't afford to dream anymore. But something about the stranger made her heart skip a beat. She pushed the thought aside and focused back on her drawing. She had a dream to chase, and no man, no matter how handsome, was going to distract her. Little did she know, this man was about to turn her world upside down. A few moments later, Emma found herself sitting across from Liam, after a mix-up on her blind date. She had mistaken him for someone else. And instead of turning around, she had sat down, nervously laughing at how awkward it all felt. "Hi, you must be Kevin?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. Liam looked up at her, startled. He blinked twice, unsure how to respond, but something in her face, the sincerity, the nervousness, made him hesitate. He was about to correct her, but something stopped him. Maybe it was her warmth, or maybe it was the sheer honesty that radiated from her. Instead of rejecting her mistake, Liam smiled faintly. "Right, blind dates are something else," he said, leaning back in his chair. Emma let out a nervous laugh. "I know this is awkward," she admitted. "But Jenny told me you might be a little quiet, so don't worry. I can talk enough for both of us." Liam's lips twitched into a smile at her earnestness. The conversation flowed easily, and before long, Emma was sharing stories of her struggles as a waitress, her dreams of someday opening an art studio. Liam found himself laughing more than he had in months. There was something refreshing about her openness, something that made him want to know more. As they spoke, Liam's mind kept drifting back to the promise he had made long ago. Here, across from him, was someone who seemed so genuine, so full of life. He hadn't felt this connected to anyone in years. But before he could process any of it, his phone buzzed. A message flashed on the screen. Kevin was running late. Emma's face paled as she read the message. Her heart sank, and her stomach twisted with embarrassment. "You're not Kevin, are you?" she asked in a small voice, barely able to make eye contact. Liam's smile faltered for a moment. He had intended to tell her the truth, but somehow, in that moment, he felt a strange reluctance. "No," he admitted softly, "I'm not." Emma stood up abruptly, her face flushed with mortification. "I'm so sorry. I thought you were someone else," she stammered, grabbing her coat and rushing toward the door. But Liam didn't move. He watched her leave, a strange mix of regret and curiosity swirling in his chest. He wasn't sure why, but the thought of never seeing her again bothered him more than he expected. And so, without realizing it, Emma had become part of his story, a story that was about to change both their lives forever. The next morning, Emma couldn't stop thinking about the man she had mistakenly called Kevin. She had been so embarrassed when she realized her mistake, and now, sitting at her small kitchen table, she couldn't help but replay the entire scene in her head. What had she been thinking? Why had she rushed off like that? She had barely said goodbye, her face red with humiliation. Yet, there was something about him, something different, that stuck with her. He wasn't like the other men she had met. He hadn't been judging, and that alone made her wonder if she'd misjudged him. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from Jenny, asking how the blind date had gone. Emma hesitated before typing back. It was awkward. I sat at the wrong table. Thought he was someone else. I ran out. She hit send, then slumped back into her chair. She didn't know why she felt so embarrassed, but the entire situation had left her feeling oddly vulnerable. Later that day, she was working at the local diner when a familiar face walked in. It was him. Liam. The man from the cafe. The man she had mistaken for Kevin. Her heart skipped a beat as she froze for a moment, staring at him. He glanced around the diner and then met her eyes. His expression was unreadable. He walked up to the counter and smiled at her, almost as if nothing had happened. "Hey, it's you," he said casually, as though it was completely normal for him to be sitting in the same diner as the woman who had bolted away from him the day before. Emma's face flushed again, but this time, it wasn't with embarrassment. She felt something else, curiosity, maybe even relief. "Oh yeah, it's me," she managed to say, her voice a little shaky. She quickly wiped down the counter, trying to hide her nerves. Liam smiled at her again, that same faint smile that made her stomach do flips. "I'm sorry for making things awkward yesterday. I should have said something sooner, but you seemed so genuine. I didn't want to ruin it." His words took Emma by surprise, and for a second, she was speechless. He didn't seem like the kind of guy who would care about something as small as an awkward mix-up. Emma finally found her voice. "It's okay," she said quickly, not wanting to dwell on the past. "I was just embarrassed. But you're here now, so let's not make it weird." She tried to sound confident, but the truth was, she had no idea what she was supposed to say next. Liam looked at her with an amused expression. "I'm just getting a coffee," he said. "But maybe after your shift, you'd want to grab something? A coffee, or something stronger. We could talk." His offer hung in the air, and Emma couldn't tell if he was joking or if there was something more behind it. For a moment, Emma hesitated. She wasn't sure what to make of this, but she found herself nodding. "Sure, I get off in a couple of hours." She could hardly believe she was agreeing to this. He was a stranger, but something about him felt right. And besides, what did she have to lose? As the hours passed, Emma's mind raced. She had agreed to meet him again. Liam Parker, the man she had mistakenly called Kevin. He wasn't just anyone. He was someone who had seemed genuine when so many others had been fake. What if this was her chance to find something real? She knew she had to stop overthinking it. When her shift finally ended, she walked outside, her heart pounding in her chest. The cool night air hit her face, and she spotted Liam waiting by his car. He had changed into a more casual outfit, dark jeans and a leather jacket. He looked every bit the successful man she knew he was, but there was still something approachable about him. They walked to a nearby cafe, where they sat down and talked, the conversation flowing easily. Emma found herself opening up to him more than she ever had with anyone. She told him about her dreams of opening an art studio, about her struggles to make ends meet, and about the pain she carried from her past. Liam listened intently, nodding at the right moments, offering his own thoughts here and there. He didn't try to fix her problems, but he seemed genuinely interested in understanding her. She hadn't expected that. She hadn't expected him to be so different from the wealthy men she had encountered in the past. As the night went on, Emma realized she felt something she hadn't in a long time, a sense of connection. Not just with Liam, but with herself. Talking to him had made her realize that maybe she was stronger than she thought, and maybe, just maybe, she could take a chance on something real. As they parted ways that night, Liam gave her a small, encouraging smile. "I'll see you around, Emma," he said softly. Emma watched him drive off, a feeling of hope rising in her chest. She didn't know where this would lead, but for the first time in a long time, she was ready to find out. Over the next few days, Emma couldn't stop thinking about Liam. After their coffee, everything had felt so normal. He hadn't been like the other rich men she had encountered in her life, distant, self-absorbed, or simply uninterested. Liam had listened to her with real attention, and she found herself looking forward to their next encounter. She knew she shouldn't get her hopes up. She had made that mistake before, but there was something different about him. At work, Emma was distracted. As she served coffee and refilled drinks, her mind wandered back to their conversation. Liam had talked about his work in tech, but there was a level of secrecy there, a guardedness she hadn't fully understood. He had avoided talking too much about himself, but that was okay. She didn't need to know everything. For once, she was content with the moments they shared, with the connection they had made. Then, one afternoon, while Emma was on her lunch break, her phone buzzed with a message. It was from Liam. "Hey, I'm hosting an event at the hospital tonight for some of the top donors. I'd love for you to come. It'll be low-key, just a small dinner. What do you say?" The hospital. Emma felt a knot form in her stomach. Liam had mentioned the hospital before, but she hadn't realized just how important it was to him. She didn't know if she was ready for an event like that. She wasn't part of that world. She was just a waitress with big dreams and little money. But something about Liam's message made her hesitate. She thought about it for a few moments before typing back, "I'd love to. I'll see you tonight." When she arrived at the hospital that evening, Emma felt like a fish out of water. The building was immaculate. Everything about it screamed wealth and professionalism. She was dressed in a simple black dress, trying to blend in. But as she stepped into the lobby, she couldn't help but feel small compared to the polished guests mingling in the grand space. Liam was there, standing by the entrance, dressed in a tailored suit that made him look even more imposing. "You made it," Liam said with a smile as he approached. His voice was warm, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that he was somehow different here, more distant. Maybe it was the setting, or maybe it was the people around him. She smiled back, trying not to let her nerves show. "I wasn't sure what to expect," Emma said, adjusting her clutch bag nervously. Liam chuckled softly. "You look great," he said, his gaze lingering for a moment longer than necessary. "I'm glad you could make it. Come on, let me introduce you to some people." As the night went on, Emma tried her best to mingle, but she felt out of place. She wasn't used to these kinds of events, and the conversation often drifted into topics she didn't understand, finances, investments, and projects that seemed far above her head. Liam, on the other hand, seemed to glide through the room with ease, chatting with guests and shaking hands as if he had done this 1,000 times. She couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy. He was so at ease here, while she felt like an outsider. She excused herself and found a quiet corner to collect her thoughts. She didn't belong here, she told herself. This was a world she didn't know, one she could never be a part of. But just as she was about to walk back to the crowd, Liam appeared by her side. "Hey, everything okay?" Liam asked, his tone more serious than before. Emma forced a smile, trying to mask her discomfort. "Yeah, just a bit overwhelmed, I guess. This is all a little new for me." Liam looked at her for a moment, then nodded. "I get it. You don't have to pretend to be something you're not." There was a softness in his voice that surprised Emma. For a moment, she forgot about the luxury of the event and the pressure she had put on herself. Liam wasn't judging her. He was just there. As the night came to an end, Liam offered to drive her home. She accepted, feeling a sense of relief as they walked out into the cool night air. The drive was quiet, but it wasn't uncomfortable. They both seemed lost in their thoughts. When they arrived at her apartment, Emma turned to him. "Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it, even if I felt out of place." Liam smiled, his gaze softening. "You're welcome. Don't be so hard on yourself. You belong wherever you want to be, Emma." His words hit her harder than she expected. It wasn't just the kindness. It was the sincerity in his voice that made her believe him. She didn't know what this was, what they were, but something about him made her feel like she could belong in places she had never imagined. As she stepped out of the car and waved him goodbye, she couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. Maybe she had been wrong all along about what she deserved. Maybe this was just the beginning. Days passed, and Emma found herself thinking about Liam more often. The evening at the hospital had been a turning point for her. She'd never imagined herself in that world, yet Liam had made her feel like she belonged, even when the setting felt alien. The way he spoke to her, the way he looked at her, it wasn't just kindness, it was something deeper. Emma couldn't deny it. The connection between them was undeniable. But as much as she tried to push those feelings aside, they only grew stronger. Every time she saw Liam, whether at the cafe or during their late-night talks, her feelings for him deepened. She had started to let herself believe in something more than just the promises of dreams and aspirations. Liam wasn't just the wealthy, successful CEO. He was someone who made her feel seen, someone who cared about more than just business deals and social status. One evening, after her shift ended, Emma received a text from Liam. "I know it's last minute, but I have a charity event tomorrow evening. It's for the hospital, and I was wondering if you'd like to join me as my guest. It would mean a lot to me." Her heart skipped a beat. The idea of another high-profile event made her nervous, but she didn't want to disappoint him. She had been avoiding her feelings for so long, afraid of getting hurt, but Liam had always been straightforward with her, and that honesty made her want to trust him. After a moment of hesitation, she typed back, "I'd love to come. I'll be there." The next night, Emma found herself at the gala, standing in front of a large, glittering building. The lights outside shimmered like stars in the night sky, and the sound of laughter and music floated out from the open doors. As she entered the venue, her nerves hit her all over again. She was underdressed compared to the elegantly suited people around her. She had no idea how she was supposed to navigate this world, but she told herself to just breathe. As soon as she stepped into the grand ballroom, she spotted Liam. He was across the room, talking to a group of donors, but the moment he saw her, his eyes softened, and he excused himself from the conversation to walk toward her. "Emma, you made it," he said, his voice warm, and for a second, it felt like the rest of the room faded away. He was genuinely happy to see her, and that made her heart swell. She forced a smile, trying not to let the nervousness show. "I wasn't sure if I'd fit in here," she admitted, glancing around the room. "It's a bit overwhelming." Liam chuckled lightly, placing a reassuring hand on her arm. "You don't need to fit in. Just be yourself. That's all I need." His words were simple, but they carried a weight that made Emma feel both at ease and completely seen. He introduced her to a few of his colleagues and guests, but throughout the evening, Emma kept finding herself drawn back to him. Their connection felt so natural, like they had known each other far longer than they actually had. As the night wore on, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was different this time. Liam wasn't just the man who had invited her to an event. He was someone who had genuinely made an impact on her life, someone who had helped her see a future she never thought possible. And the more she thought about it, the more she realized she didn't just want to be a guest at his event. She wanted to be a part of his world. After the speeches and dinner, the event moved into a quieter space for mingling, and Liam pulled her aside. "Can we talk for a minute?" he asked, his voice low. They stepped away from the crowd, finding a secluded spot by the large windows. Outside, the city lights twinkled in the distance, but inside, everything felt more intimate. "Emma," Liam began, his tone serious, yet gentle. "I know we've only known each other for a short time, but I feel something I can't ignore. And I need to ask you something. Where do you see this going? Where do you see us?" The question caught Emma off guard, and she felt her stomach tighten. This wasn't the conversation she had expected to have tonight. But as she looked at Liam, she saw the sincerity in his eyes. He wasn't just asking to be polite. He was asking because he genuinely cared. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "I don't know," she replied honestly. "I didn't expect to be here, and I didn't expect to feel this way, but I think we should take it one step at a time." Liam nodded, his lips curving into a small smile. "One step at a time is all I'm asking for," he said. "We don't have to rush. But I want you to know, I'm here for the long haul, Emma. And I hope you can see that too." His words were simple, but they meant more than she could say. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt a sense of hope she hadn't allowed herself to feel before. As they stood there, the world around them faded, and for a brief moment, Emma felt as if they were the only two people in the room. She wasn't sure what the future held, but with Liam, for the first time, it didn't feel like an impossible dream. She smiled softly. "I think I can." And just like that, the promise of something real began to take shape. Weeks passed, and Emma's life had begun to feel more like a dream than reality. She had started spending more time with Liam, and the more she got to know him, the more she realized just how much he had been hiding beneath the surface. The hospital, his empire, his wealth, everything seemed like a protective wall around him. keeping people at a distance. But with her, it was different. With Emma, Liam had begun to open up, and she had seen a side of him that no one else seemed to know. One evening, after spending the day together, they sat in Liam's penthouse, enjoying a quiet dinner. The city lights below twinkled like stars, but inside, the atmosphere was calm. Emma was sipping her wine, and Liam was telling her about a new project he was working on, an expansion for the hospital. But as he spoke, she noticed the familiar shadow in his eyes, a sign that something was bothering him. "Is everything okay?" Emma asked, setting her glass down and meeting his gaze. She could tell that he wasn't fully present, his mind somewhere else. Liam hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, just a little stressed. There's a lot going on at work, and sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in it all." Emma didn't say anything right away. She could see how much pressure he was under. His life was full of responsibility, and it seemed like everyone expected something from him. But she also knew that he didn't have to carry it alone. She reached across the table and gently touched his hand, offering him a quiet comfort. "You don't have to do it all by yourself, you know," Emma said softly, her voice warm with sincerity. "I'm here for you, whatever you need." For a moment, Liam just looked at her, his expression softening. Then he pulled his hand away, almost as if he was afraid of showing too much vulnerability. "I know," he said, his voice quiet. "But sometimes, I feel like I don't deserve it. I built this whole empire, and yet, I can't shake this feeling of emptiness. Like I'm still missing something." Emma's heart ached for him. She could see the loneliness behind his words, the man who had everything but still felt like he had nothing. She reached for his hand again, this time more firmly, and looked him in the eye. "You're not alone, Liam," she said, her voice steady. "I know you've been through a lot, but you don't have to carry this weight alone anymore. I'm here, and I care about you. I think you deserve to be happy, just as you are." Liam's expression faltered, and for the first time in a long while, he seemed to relax. The weight of the world didn't seem so heavy anymore. He squeezed her hand, his thumb brushing over her fingers gently. "Thank you," he whispered. "You make it seem so simple." Emma smiled softly, knowing that it wasn't about making things simple. It was about being there for him, no matter what. She had always believed in the power of connection, and now, in this moment, it felt like she was finally seeing the man Liam truly was. Over the next few weeks, things began to shift between them. Liam opened up more about his past, about the promise he had made, the woman he had promised to build the hospital for, and the guilt he had carried with him for so long. Emma listened without judgment, offering him comfort when he needed it, and giving him space when he felt overwhelmed. One evening, as they were walking through the park near the hospital, Liam turned to Emma, his face serious. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said," he began, his voice low. "And I've realized something important. I've spent so much of my life focusing on what I thought would make me happy, money, success, power. But the truth is, I was wrong. What matters most is the people in my life. And you've made me realize that." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She had never expected Liam to open up like this, but hearing him say those words filled her with warmth. "You've changed my life, Emma," Liam continued. "You've made me see that love and connection are what make life worth living." Emma looked at him, her eyes shining. "I'm glad I could help you see that. Because you deserve to be happy, Liam. You've done so much for others. It's time to let yourself be happy too." They stopped walking, and for a moment, it felt like time stood still. Liam reached out and gently cupped her face in his hands. He looked at her, his eyes filled with a tenderness she had never seen before. "I've been holding back for so long," Liam said softly. "But I can't hold back anymore. I love you, Emma. I love you more than I ever thought was possible." Emma's heart swelled with emotion as she heard those words. She had always hoped for something like this, but hearing it from him, hearing him finally admit it, was everything. Without saying another word, she leaned in, and they kissed. It was soft at first, tentative, but then it deepened, the kiss full of all the feelings they had both kept locked inside for so long. In that moment, Emma knew that everything had changed. Their story was just beginning, and no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. As they pulled apart, Liam smiled at her, his expression full of hope and promise. "This is just the beginning, Emma," he said softly. "I can't wait to see where this takes us." And Emma, with a smile of her own, knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The weeks that followed felt like a whirlwind, but in the best possible way. Emma and Liam were inseparable. Their connection had deepened, and every moment they shared felt more real than the last. Liam had finally opened up to her about the promise he had made to someone important in his life, the woman who had believed in him when no one else did. He had built the hospital in her memory, but it had never truly brought him peace. Now, with Emma by his side, he was beginning to understand that maybe there was more to life than just keeping promises to the past. He had to build something for the future, and Emma was part of that future. One evening, after spending the day working together at the hospital, Emma and Liam took a walk through the quiet streets. The cool breeze brushed against their skin, and the sound of their footsteps echoed in the empty streets. As they walked, Emma glanced at Liam, who seemed deep in thought. "You're awfully quiet tonight," she remarked, breaking the silence. "What's on your mind?" Liam took a deep breath, looking at the stars above before answering. "I've been thinking about everything. About you, about me, about us. We've come a long way, and it feels like I've known you forever, even though it's only been a short time." Emma smiled softly, her heart swelling with affection. "I feel the same way," she admitted. "I never expected to find someone like you. I always thought love was something out of reach, but with you, it feels like it's all possible." Liam stopped walking and turned to face her, his eyes soft and intense. "I want you to know, Emma, that everything I've done, everything I've worked for, everything I've built, it's nothing without you. I've spent so much time building walls around me, trying to protect myself, but you've broken through them. You've made me realize that what really matters is love and connection, and I don't want to keep hiding from that anymore." Emma felt a lump form in her throat as she listened to him. His words were so raw, so honest, and for the first time, she felt like she was seeing the real Liam. No longer just the successful CEO, but the man who had learned to open his heart. She reached out, placing her hand over his. "You don't have to hide anymore, Liam. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. You've already shown me so much, and I want to be there for you too." Liam's lips curved into a soft smile, and he gently cupped her face in his hands. "I know, and that's all I've ever wanted. Someone to face the world with, someone who understands me. And now, I have that with you." Emma's heart raced as they stood there, the night air between them filled with unspoken words. She had never felt so seen, so accepted. Liam wasn't perfect, and neither was she, but together, they felt complete. "I love you, Liam," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible in the stillness of the night. Liam leaned in, his forehead resting against hers. "I love you too, Emma, more than I can put into words." In that moment, time seemed to stand still. All the fears, all the doubts, melted away. They were no longer two people from different worlds. They were two souls who had found something worth fighting for. As the night grew colder, they made their way back to Liam's penthouse, hand in hand. Inside, the soft glow of the city lights illuminated the room, but it was the warmth between them that filled the space. They didn't need to say anything more. The connection they shared was enough. The following weeks brought more than just love, they brought change. Liam's work at the hospital took on a new purpose. He began to focus not just on expanding his business, but on creating a legacy that would reflect the values he had learned from Emma. He wanted to build something that would not only change lives, but touch hearts. Emma, too, found herself inspired by their journey together. She began to put more effort into her own art, working on creating a gallery that would showcase her paintings and the stories behind them. She no longer saw herself as just a waitress with a dream. She was a woman with a purpose that now included Liam and the life they were building together. One afternoon, as they sat together in the hospital courtyard, Liam turned to Emma with a smile that made her heart flutter. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice playful yet serious. "What would you say about taking this partnership to the next level?" Emma raised an eyebrow, a teasing smile spreading across her face. "What do you mean?" Liam got down on one knee, his expression serious but full of love. "Will you marry me, Emma? Will you make me the happiest man alive and join me in this journey we've started?" Emma's breath caught in her throat. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but never had it felt so real, so perfect. Tears welled up in her eyes as she nodded, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes, Liam. Yes, I will marry you." And in that moment, their future together felt brighter than ever before. The weeks following Liam's proposal were filled with excitement and anticipation, but also a sense of unease. Emma had never expected her life to change so drastically, and though she was thrilled to be marrying Liam, the reality of it all was starting to hit her. As the wedding preparations went into full swing, she found herself overwhelmed by the magnitude of the life she was about to enter. The contrast between her humble beginnings and the lavish world Liam lived in felt like an ever-growing gap, one that she wasn't sure she could bridge. It wasn't that Liam hadn't been supportive. He was. He was patient, kind, and gentle with her every step of the way. But Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong in his world. The gala events, the business meetings, the lavish charity galas, it all felt so far removed from the life she had once known. She was just a waitress who dreamed of having her own art studio, and now she was stepping into a life she couldn't have imagined. One afternoon, while they were having lunch at Liam's penthouse, Emma found herself lost in thought again. Liam noticed her silence and reached across the table, placing his hand on hers. "What's going on in that head of yours?" he asked softly. Emma hesitated for a moment before looking at him. I don't know if I'm ready for all of this. It's not the wedding. I want that more than anything. It's everything else. Your world is so big, and I'm just me. What if I don't fit?" Liam smiled warmly, squeezing her hand gently. "Emma, you already fit. You fit into my life from the moment I met you. I don't need you to be anything other than yourself. That's who I fell in love with." Her heart fluttered at his words, but the doubt still lingered. "But what if that's not enough?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam stood up and walked over to where she was sitting, then gently cupped her face in his hands. "Listen to me, Emma. You are more than enough. You always have been. I fell in love with you for who you are, not for the life you come from, or the world you're stepping into. We're building something together, and that something is based on love, not perfection." Emma felt a lump form in her throat as she looked into his eyes. He was right. He always was. But she had to allow herself to believe that, to believe in the future they were building. She wasn't just marrying a man who had everything. She was marrying a man who had already given her everything that mattered. Love, trust, and the belief that she, too, was worthy of it. "Okay," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Okay, I'm ready. I'll do this with you. I'm not going to let fear stop me anymore." Liam smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile, and pulled her into a warm embrace. "You don't have to do it alone, Emma. I'll be right beside you, every step of the way." And for the first time in weeks, Emma felt the weight of her doubts lift. She wasn't alone in this. With Liam by her side, she could face whatever came next. As the days passed, their wedding plans continued, and the closer they got to the big day, the more Emma began to feel at peace with everything. She was no longer fighting against the life Liam had built for himself. Instead, she was learning to embrace it, to make it her own. She had always wanted to create a space for herself, and now, with Liam, she was building a life that was just as much hers as it was his. On the night before their wedding, they stood together, looking out over the city skyline from the balcony of their penthouse. The city was alive with lights, but the only thing Emma could focus on was the man standing beside her. "Tomorrow's the big day," Liam said, his voice low and soft. Emma turned to face him, her heart beating faster. "I can't believe it's finally here. I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Liam reached for her hand, pulling her close. "Me neither," he whispered, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "We've got this, Emma. Together." And as they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Emma realized that everything had led to this moment. The promise, the challenges, the doubts, all of it had brought her here, to a life full of love and possibility. And with Liam by her side, she knew she was ready to take on whatever came next. The day of their wedding arrived, and Emma stood in front of the full-length mirror, her hands trembling as she adjusted the veil that Liam had insisted on picking out for her. It was a beautiful day, the sky clear, the sun shining brightly, but inside, Emma's heart was racing. She could hear the distant sounds of guests arriving, the chatter and laughter drifting through the halls of the grand venue. The wedding had been meticulously planned, every detail perfect, but none of that mattered as much as the man waiting for her at the altar. Emma had spent so much of her life feeling uncertain, questioning her worth, but today, as she looked at herself in the mirror, she realized something. She wasn't just the girl who had come from humble beginnings. the girl who once thought she didn't belong in Liam's world. She was someone worthy of the love and life she was about to enter. The fear that had once held her back was gone, replaced with a quiet confidence. She knew now that this was where she was meant to be. As the door to the bridal suite opened, her maid of honor, Jenny, stepped in with a bright smile. "You look amazing, Emma. Liam is going to lose it when he sees you." Emma laughed softly, wiping away a tear that had slipped down her cheek. "I just want everything to go right. I want this to be the start of something beautiful, something real." Jenny gave her a comforting hug. "It will be. You two are meant for each other. I've never seen Liam so happy." Emma smiled, the knot in her stomach loosening just a bit. She had spent so many years questioning what happiness really meant. But standing here, knowing she was about to marry Liam, she understood. Happiness wasn't found in grand gestures or the things you could buy. It was found in the moments that mattered most, the quiet support, the shared laughter, the promise of a future together. The music played softly in the background, signaling that it was time. Emma took a deep breath, glancing at Jenny one last time before stepping out into the hallway. Her heart pounded in her chest as she walked toward the ceremony. Every step felt surreal, but with each one, her resolve grew stronger. She was ready for this. She was ready for Liam. As she reached the doors to the ceremony, she took one last look at Jenny, who gave her an encouraging nod. "You've got this," Jenny whispered. Emma smiled and nodded, then stepped through the doors. The room fell silent as she walked down the aisle, her eyes locking with Liam's. He was standing there, looking more handsome than she had ever seen him, his face soft with emotion. His eyes were filled with love, and for the first time, Emma didn't feel out of place. She was right where she belonged. As Emma reached the altar, Liam took her hands in his voice barely above a whisper. "You're stunning," he said, his words filled with awe. "I can't believe this moment is finally here." Emma smiled, her heart overflowing. "I can't either, but I'm so glad it is." The officiant began the ceremony, and everything around them faded into the background. The vows they exchanged were simple but powerful. Liam spoke of love, of commitment, of building a future together. Emma, too, spoke from the heart, promising to support him, to love him unconditionally, no matter the challenges they would face. When the officiant finally declared them husband and wife, Liam leaned in and kissed her gently, sealing their vows with a tender kiss that sent a wave of joy through Emma's heart. As they pulled apart, Liam smiled, his face full of happiness and hope. "I love you, Emma," he whispered. "I love you too, Liam," Emma replied, her voice full of emotion. As they walked back down the aisle, hand in hand, Emma realized that everything had led to this moment. The promise, the doubts, the fears, and now, they were ready to begin their life together. It wasn't going to be easy. There would be challenges, there would be obstacles, but with Liam by her side, Emma knew they could face anything. They had built something real, something that was truly theirs. And as the reception began, Emma danced with Liam under the soft glow of the chandeliers, surrounded by family and friends, the world feeling perfect in that moment. She wasn't just living a dream. She was living a life that was meant for her, one that was built on love, trust, and the hope of a future filled with endless possibilities. Months passed since Emma and Liam's wedding, and life seemed to fall into a beautiful rhythm. They settled into their new life together, finding joy in the small, everyday moments that many people often overlook. Emma was growing into her role in Liam's world, not because she had to, but because it felt natural. She still held on to her dreams of her art studio, and now, with Liam's unwavering support, she was closer than ever to making it a reality. Liam, too, had changed. The walls he had built around himself were slowly coming down, bit by bit. He had learned to open up, to let people in, and, most importantly, to trust in the love he shared with Emma. They had faced challenges, yes, but they always faced them together, side by side. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of their penthouse, watching the city lights flicker below them, Emma turned to Liam with a thoughtful look on her face. "Do you ever think about where we were before all of this? Before the hospital, before everything?" Liam smiled softly, his hand gently holding hers. "All the time. I think about how much I've grown, and how much I've learned from you. I thought I had everything figured out, but you made me realize that there's so much more to life than just success. It's about connection. It's about love. Emma leaned her head on his shoulder, her heart full. I used to think that my dreams were impossible, that the life I wanted was too far out of reach. But now I see that everything is possible when you have someone by your side who believes in you. Liam kissed the top of her head, holding her close. You've always been capable, Emma. You just needed to believe in yourself. And I'll always believe in you. They spent the evening together, talking about their future, about the art studio Emma was finally opening and the plans they had for the hospital. As they talked, they realized that their journey was just beginning. Together, they were building a future that was uniquely theirs, one that was filled with love, ambition, and mutual respect. A few months later, Emma stood in the middle of her new art studio, surrounded by her paintings and the people who had supported her along the way. The walls were lined with her work, each piece telling its own story, each brushstroke filled with meaning. And as she stood there, smiling at the growth she had achieved, she realized that the journey she had started all those years ago was more than just about her dreams. It was about the love and support she had received along the way. Liam stood beside her, his arm wrapped around her waist, looking at her with pride. I knew you could do it, he said, his voice full of admiration. Emma turned to him, her eyes sparkling. I couldn't have done it without you. You helped me believe in myself when I didn't know how. He smiled, his love for her clear in every glance. And I always will. As they stood there, in the midst of their accomplishments, Emma knew that life wasn't about perfection. It was about embracing the imperfections, about growing together, and about building something that would last. It wasn't just the art studio or the hospital. It was their life together, and that was more than enough. And so, as they walked out of the studio that day, hand in hand, they knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. Their love was the foundation of everything they had built, and with that love, there was nothing they couldn't overcome.